Hello, everyone. Derek Floyd here, Beautiful Now Podcast. Welcome to another edition of Chasing the Impossible. This is the segment where I interview special guests who happen to accomplish impossible things along the way to let you know and to remind you that no matter how impossible your dream may seem, how big it may be, how daunting it can seem, you can accomplish yours too. But as always, if you love the content you see here, you gotta do me a favor. Help me with a like or subscribe to the channel. This lets me get the most updated content to you as soon as it's available. And as always, our podcasts are powered by IK Multimedia. Now, my special guest today just happens to be a pioneer DJ producer in the EDM or electronic dance music genre. He's also credited with actually being one of the first to bring a specific track, Sandstorm, to the US that broke new ground for EDM music. They say this guy was one of the ones that brought it all here, who brought it from the underground to making it be huge in the US clubs. But he's got a story to tell you that might surprise you. So sit back and relax and help me welcome our new friend, Darude. Darude, you there, my friend?
I'm here. Just for you, my man.
Is. Man, I actually do appreciate you making some time to talk to the subscribers. What's been going on out there in Finney?
Not much. The usual COVID lockdown stuff. I've been in my studio quite a lot. Today I've been working on a track that has like sort of a trance mix is ready, but I want to do a houseier mix for it. And then I also did this DJ mix for UK Kiss FM. It's going to be aired in a week or two. And that's that. My day is about to end here, and then it's family time after that. And you know what? If the snow has melted and if it's dry, while my son goes to hockey practice, I'm going to go skateboard a little bit.
Look at you, man. Still rocking a skateboard, huh?
Well, I don't know about rocking, but trying.
Oh, man, you have been in this game. You're a veteran, man, for over 20 years. Does it feel like it's been that long?
I mean, sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's like yesterday. Like, I remember a lot of small little details from, along the way. But then at the same time, yeah, obviously, like in everything, 20 years is a really long time, and a lot has happened, and we have had a lot in that time period. But I don't know. I still feel like I'm the 16, 17-year-old kid who fell in love with music and didn't even know that he'd ever be a performer or a professional.
Wow. And when I think of where you started from and where you are now, I'm sure you look at the music industry and say, man, so much has changed, right? I mean, it's not the same as it was then, or is it similar? How's it changed in your world?
I mean, when I'm here, when I make my music, I try and be the same dude, do the same kind of stuff, just be here and create the stuff that I like. I'm still inspired by sounds and just noodling around, having fun with it. But yeah, the industry, we've had internet revolution in many sort of ways. We've had from vinyl to CD to MP3s to streaming transitions. And, there wasn't micropayments. There wasn't online payments when I first started. There was certainly no Bitcoins and Ethereums and NFTs and whatnot. So, there were no superstar DJs really either. Maybe a couple of names that started then, mid-90s sort of coming up, but it was all about bands, and there was obviously dance music then, but it wasn't really a DJ kind of touring thing at that point. So, and I wasn't a DJ when I started. I was just a noisemaker, wouldn't even call myself a producer, and I later became a DJ after I was sort of found, after my first track, Sandstorm, took off, and there was all of a sudden some demand for touring. But I did like live shows first. I had keyboards and effects units and sampler and whatnot to get it going. And then a couple of years in, I sort of on the side learned how to technically DJ, and then I started just adding to my live shows length initially, just DJing an extra set after the fact, and and then later on just started being booked as a DJ as well.
Wow. And when I think about DJ slash producer, they really are two jobs. They're two different specific skill sets. Which do you find yourself leaning toward more, being a DJ or producer, and why?
I couldn't really say. Like, so I started as a noisemaker. That's my first love. You know, sitting here, pressing a key, or noodling around with a mouse, and something happening that pleases me, or something triggers something. You know, I play two notes, and there's a delay on top of that sound, and then it starts creating harmonics, or there's a rhythm coming from the delay, and that I hear, and then I start sort of hearing more and more things and layers, and then what I hear try to actually play out with certain sound that kind of builds like Lego blocks or whatever, and that's my first love, absolutely. But then being a producer and a DJ, that's like best of both worlds. It's just different sides of the coin when you talk about dance music. So there's nothing better than, you know, sitting in my studio on a Thursday, creating a piece of music, sometimes even finishing it up on an airplane or something in a hotel room, and then the next night going to a club, having that, you know, now fresh new track or version of it that is playable, and I can just test play it right then and there for a live crowd.
That's gotta be cool. Now, that's gotta be cool.
Yeah,
everybody can't do it that way. They can't create a piece of music and instantly get it out to fans. That's cool.
And the key there is that I'll play it, I test play it, and if it creates a good reaction, I'll be like, yeah, something I made. And if it doesn't work, I'll quietly mix in the next track and never tell anybody. No, but for real, for a dance music producer, that testing ground is the best thing that you can have, and I consider myself lucky having the opportunity to just like field test stuff immediately. Like sometimes when I mix, you know, on a Friday, I mix two tracks together, somebody else's tracks, and I realize, holy crap, they really gel. Their harmonies work, or rhythms, or whatever. The next night I can actually have a fully working, like, studio produced mashup of those two ready to go. Or I can decide I'll never try and produce anything with them mashup wise, but I'll just do that as a live mashup because they just work so well together. Or I can get inspired, like, hey, my track plus that other track might work really well together, and I can sort of, mind you, not copy anything, not like that, but get the idea, like, hey, the vocal went like this, and then the other track's bass line was like that. Well, I have a bass line that is a little similar. Can I get a singer to sing something like phrasing wise or timing wise a little similar to this, because that gives me like a great idea for a vocal. So you know, I call somebody, noodle around it with my production, and it's so immediate that I can see it on the dance floor, and I can basically make a mental note or even mumble to my phone during the set, hey, remember to check this track, think it like that. And then when I, you know, am back at the hotel or back in my studio here in Finland, then I can sort of like, you know, revisit those thoughts, even sounds that I can hear if I actually really recorded something on the phone. And, you know, the next week I might have a piece of new music that I can try out that was based on my experience with live crowd in the middle of a DJ set. And that's just so inspired and triggered something like that. And cool. It's a constant sort of thing where I try to grab those moments, and then I try to make notes of them, some sort of mental note, and, you know, a written or spoken note, but also like of the atmosphere or the feeling that I had, so that I can grasp it when I actually start working on a track.
Wow. Wow. That's so neat that you're almost like writing the song with the crowd. You're feeling out what they're doing. You're kind of taking in the emotion, letting the track write itself almost as the crowd begins to move. Incredible. Incredible.
And the thing is that I never know exactly what the track is going to be until I'm actually working on it, or I collaborate with somebody who contributes, like, say, the vocal melody or something. So again, I want to point out that I'm not meaning that I copy a track by somebody else that I hear, but it's the feeling that it gives me and the moment. And then I actually make a point of not referencing to that track when I'm in the studio, because I don't want even accidentally to like steal somebody's sounds or the actual exact thing or anything of it. But I steal the vibe, or I steal the feeling that was in that moment, and then I build on that, because the inspiration that something gives you, whether it's, you know, your child laughing or a bit of news that you see on TV, whether it's good or bad or whatever, whenever you get that kind of feeling or vibe of something, it's best to try and somehow remember that, internalize it, so that you can pull from it when you have the chance to actually work on something.
Wow. With all this you're talking about and learning how to capture the moment, when did you discover that you actually had the love for music or for EDM in itself? How did that transpire?
Oh, well, EDM, something like early 90s, I guess. I mean, I was a fan of my first ever CD that I bought myself was the KLF's White Room, that had tracks like 3 a.m. Eternal and Justified Ancients and whatever. It was life-changing for me. There were some stuff like Guru Josh and the 49ers and Black Box, of course. I listened to a really wide variety of dance music. There was European, sort of this Schlager dance music, I would say. Bad Boys Blue and Modern Talking. Then there was, you know, Hathaway, What Is Love, obviously. Faithless,
some biggies that came out of the gate.
Robert Miles' Children was absolutely one of my big triggers, so to say. But then I listened to Jean-Michel Jarre mid or late 80s when I was just like preteen, basically. And then I listened a lot to like Twisted Sister and Bon Jovi's and, you know, the 80s hair metal stuff.
80s hair bands. We've all been there, bro. It's a guilty pleasure.
You know what? I'm very happy and proud to say that, you know, it doesn't have to be even a guilty pleasure. It's just a pleasure. That's no shame in my game, man.
I love it.
but anything that has sort of catchy, hooky melody, some emotion, it can be happy or sad, and then energy. Like my music, most of it has some sort of driving drum thing, bass thing, or whatever that is, like makes you nod or move. And that's what I look for myself. Like if I'm working on a track that seemingly has all kinds of stuff in it that should work, but if it doesn't somehow make me move, then it's just a bunch of drums that won't work together yet. Or so. But I was studying. I was kind of a late bloomer, believe me or not. Like I knew early on my love for dance music and music in general was great, but I never played an instrument like that. You know, we had like a little Casio keyboard home, so I would play like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or whatever, but one fingered. But I was always interested in music really, really sort of deeply. And my buddies who would just go out and, you know, when that time was, you know, teens and late teens, you know, get wasted and whatnot, I often stayed home and listened to my radio stations and tried to catch that, you know, record on a tape.
Oh, I used to do that all the time.
I mean, that was me. And yeah, everybody did that, but I did that to like the ninth degree compared to my buddies, at least at that point. But I never played anything, so I wasn't gravitating towards being in a band or anything like that. And then I played ice hockey, so that took a lot of my time. You know, it's not that I missed making music because I didn't even know I could do that. But so then I started studying at a new school, 1995 in Turku in Finland, and a couple of my new buddies there at that school showed me how I can make music with just a computer. There were these softwares, like early on tracker programs that were kind of like samplers, but within a computer, and you could quite crudely, but still you could sample tracks, or you could play, you know, kick drums and hi-hats and melodies with pianos and whatnot. And the sound quality wasn't amazing, whatever, but that was besides the point. Like, I all of a sudden heard, like, into the music. I heard there was a hi-hat separately, and there was a kick, and there was a bass. And then before that, I was more like a regular music listener who just hears the main melody or the main lyrics and can whistle and hum to those. But from then on, I was probably the most boring person to go out with, for instance, because I wouldn't party and dance or whatever, because I would be just like sitting or standing there trying to analyze what I hear.
Wow.
Like, the hi-hat goes like that, and the kicks is like that, and the piano melody, yeah, okay, cool. And my buddies would be just like nudging me, like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Oh, pardon my French. And it was just literally to a point that it was bad, because I would not enjoy music of others or mine, because I would just always be analyzing it. And then a couple of years in, I realized that I got a little bit over that, because I started hearing pieces of music that actually I loved. I you know, and so since then I've just always said that, you know, you can always learn something even from a bad piece of music or something that you don't like.
Sure.
You know, analytically you can learn from it. But then it's also true that if you don't realize to analyze something, it probably is because it just takes you with you. Or with it, like it's so good that you don't have a chance to analyze, you just enjoy it. And so at some point I started getting over myself, and also I started sort of honing into the dance, my kind of dance music a little more. So I started maybe more concentrating on listening to that, and found a lot more tracks that made a difference to me, and that I guess was the mark that they were so good that I wasn't always just analyzing. I needed to listen to them once or twice first, just enjoy them, and then I started analyzing.
Well, with all that going on in the background, you enjoying your music, becoming this new artist as you were forming in your mind, you create this groundbreaking track, Sandstorm. And people like Deadmau5 say this is the track that really brought EDM or trance or to the forefront in the U.S. You know, what were you thinking when you created that track? Were you was it just something you had found a vibe or a feeling when you were creating that? What was going on when that track was created?
Well, I mean, that was by far not my first track. It was, you know, I started making music late 99, late 95 or 96 or so, and Sandstorm, the actual version came out in 99, but I made the do melody thing in I think 97, and it sat on my hard drive for a good while. And then 99.
Really? It sat around for a while? You didn't it didn't come right out?
Almost 2 years, man.
Wow.
I wasn't inspired enough at that point, or I wasn't skilled enough, or whatever. I didn't hear what I just later heard. And then, like, happy accidents happened. Like the melody was the same, but it wasn't distorted. So then later on, like, July or August 99, I put it in Cubase, and in Cubase I distorted it with this is it Quadra Fuzz? I think it was the multiband distortion
Yep.
a plugin, and then it became that distorted do sound that is on the release, and all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, the chords sort of came quickly. I figured them out, other stuff around it. And I had no idea it would be big. I was just having fun. I was just doing my usual thing, like one thing led to another. I actually had a buddy who did a little rap on it, like this, not like a hip hop type rap, like the speed hip house or whatever kind of rap. Couple of words that was repeating on it. We tried that, or I tried that, and then I sang this little sing-songy thing on.
You sang on it?
One verse. Yeah, but it's
You
trust me, you don't want to hear
I
that.
I can't imagine on that track.
Yeah, I know. I hope nobody can, because. But I tried a couple of things, but it always ended up that the lead melody was so strong that there was, first of all, no real space for anything else. And then, especially when the demo. That I gave that to my buddy JS16, who then became my producer, and he was definitely of the opinion that it shouldn't have any sort of vocal. And then we produced the final form of the track in his studio with his sort of better gear and definitely better ears and golden touch.
Sure.
And he'd been in a DJing and production game for a good while already, several years, and he'd actually been awarded like the best producer of the year in Finland and whatnot. I looked up to him, and I was beyond happy, being under his wing at that point, learning from him, and it was really cool. But even him, we didn't have any idea. He had just started his record company. I was his first signing. That was his first release on that label.
Happy accidents,
and we were just two kids in the studio. But what I do remember, though, we were dancing or hopping around, and we were like, I don't know, giggling like. It was a good time, and we were excited. We felt the track, but we had no idea that it would do anything like it has done.
What it did, yeah. It had magic, bro. And most people that I talk to about stuff like that, most people tell me that they don't ever see that it's magic. It just happens. It wasn't like it was planned magic, right?
No, it wasn't. The only thing, like, I can say, like, it's easy to have the 2020 now, but we were in the studio, and we had a couple of tracks that we both liked, and we sort of referenced to certain things, what was cool sound-wise and what wasn't at that time and whatnot. But those were like tracks that you would never even realize that we were listening to at that time, because Jaakko, JS, and we had not very different tastes in music per se, but he was more like a house guy, and Armand van Helden was a big dude for him at that point. And for me, I would be looking towards like Dutch trance, and we combined those very different sounds within the dance music realm, and we did. Whether we said it to ourselves or whether we recognized it with the words that, hey, this is something crazy good, no, but we were digging it. Like, we were just involuntarily hopping up and down in the studio and like high-fiving or whatever we did at that time, and just feeling it. But for me especially, like, I hadn't been in a business even until then at all. Not looking down on myself, but I never even knew that I could be a professional musician. So my dream wasn't releasing music. Like, when I gave him the demo, I asked for feedback. I didn't ask for, I didn't ask to be signed.
Wow.
So my dream was like, burn a CD of my track and have a local DJ play it, because I wasn't the DJ.
Yeah.
And so then my biggest dream all of a sudden came true already when somebody wanted to sign my track.
Wow.
That was one. I mean, I always say that I stumbled into those things, and I just, periodically updated my dreams.
Yeah. That's awesome. Upgrade.
So, this upgrade time. Like, and now, by the way, I say that, dreams are different from goals, and it's actually a very, very good practice to separate those two. Like, I don't know what would be a good, my dream would be to, if it was safe, to, like, I don't know, jump down from the stratosphere like that one guy did with, a couple of years ago. I don't remember his name, whatever, that crazy and crazy talented. Like, that's a dream. I'll probably never do that, and not even striving to realize that, right? But it would be amazing to, have that free fall and experience that. But then, if you say that you're gonna, you dream that you're gonna win a Grammy one day, I don't dream about it. I have that as my goal.
Nice.
And whether that's, but there's a difference. Like, whether that's going to happen or not, I don't know. But at least I've realized that it's not impossible in terms of, it's not it's a lot about skills, but it's a lot about connections. It's a lot about this and that. And I've been in the business for so long that I've realized that there are much more talented people, way below my success level, and they're much less talented, way above my, skill level,
true.
whatever.
So true.
Meaning, and, like, I'm not naming names, not dissing anybody, but meaning that anything is possible if you just, like, I don't know, hit the right, open the right door or whatever. So then that's why, say, a Grammy for me it's just a goal now. It's not a dream.
Wow. And knowing now that once you reach the success of Sandstorm, I mean, I'm sure that was huge, behemoth. You didn't even know that was coming. Then the people are like, okay, what's next? They're looking at you like, what's next in your trick bag? Because once success comes, the bar is raised, so they're looking for you to do something else. How did that feel going into creating your second record? Were you ready? Were you nervous? How'd you feel about that?
Well, Feel the Beat was this follow-up single, and people always, or some critics or some whatever loudmouths, say that we made that very similar to Sandstorm because Sandstorm was successful. But that's not true. We made it very similar sound-wise because we loved those sounds. We JS had just bought a while ago. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got a JP8080 here, Roland Trans Machine, and then I have a Nordlead 2 here, which is both what we used back then as well. Nice. I'll never get rid of those.
Nice.
And so we just liked those sounds. They were new, they were big, they were lush, they were nice. And also, Jaakko's studio was not analog, but old school. He had an analog mixer, and everything was in samplers and hardware synths, not digital audio within a computer. So when you did a mix down of something, for instance, if you wanted to redo the mix down, you better do it the next day before you reset your mixer and other gear.
Yeah.
So for instance, we didn't work on Feel the Beat the next day, but Jaakko's setup in that studio was quite similar. Channels were always the same on the mixer and so on. So when we started working on Feel the Beat, Sandstorm wasn't internationally successful yet. It was just because we were working on the follow-up, we had the same 5-6 pieces of gear, like synth and sampler wise.
Okay.
And that's why we were just basically going with similar sounds. And it's in fact funny if you listen to, there's somebody saying, oh, they're like the same track. Well, then you are listening to it on a sound level only, because they're actually quite different pieces of music.
Sure.
Chords wise, quite different. The rhythm base on them is different. It's hard to explain.
Just because it has that familiar sound. That's all. That sound that they heard in Sandstorm was what brings them right back to it. That's all.
Yeah, and for instance, like in Sandstorm, you have the synth pad go like starting on 1, and on Feel the Beat, it actually doesn't start on 1, but there's like, it starts on whatever, is it on an 8th or 16th?
Yeah,
but
sure.
And the rhythm is different. Yes, the similar sounds can fool you, but on Feel the Beat, that doo-doo-doo sound is not the main thing. That track would actually work without it as well, but we put it there so as to remind that, hey, Sandstorm was there as well.
Sure.
And this is the follow-up. One has vocal, the other one doesn't, and so on. So there was no pressure really making Feel the Beat. There was, of course, expectation, because when we got ready to release it, then Sandstorm was successful to a point already. But as of making the track, very little comparatively, because it was already almost a full track when we started realizing Sandstorm was like working on some sales charts and so on.
Wow.
But then, we actually got quite rushed working on the first album, just because that's how the business works. Like, labels and his label as well, or us as well. We wanted the album out quick when Sandstorm and Feel the Beat were still hot around the world on different dance and, sales charts. So it just makes sense. But it's not that we half-assed anything, but it was definitely deadline after deadline after deadline with each track on the album, and getting it mastered and so on. But it still wasn't like, we didn't realize Sandstorm was still just getting bigger.
Still building.
And but then the second album,
it kept going.
Yeah. but yeah, to be honest, the second album in 2003, we started working on 2002 at some point. At one point, there was definitely pressure, but the good thing is that my closest friend and production partner at that point was the label owner himself. Tiny label in Finland, and so there wasn't a label head or an A&R who was breathing down my neck, make a hit, or this or that, got to follow up Sandstorm. But we were in the studio together, and we were both working, and we had different sort of ideas and different directions for certain stuff, but we were he wasn't there with a like a label owner money hat on, but it was he's a producer himself. He's a very hands-on guy, and I wouldn't be here without him, because he first of all, he found me, so to say, but then also he showed me so much of production and helped me with the first 2 records. But I didn't have the chops to professionally mix and produce stuff to anywhere near the same level he had at that point. So,
wow.
But then we decided, after like maybe a couple of sessions or whatever, like, look, man, Sandstorm this, success that. We never made those tracks thinking of success. It was both of us loving music. Him especially, he was also a seasoned DJ at that point, and we were just thinking like, what would work on a dance floor, and so it was at one point just a decision. We were working on this female vocal track, dance, like an uplifting trance record called Next to You, and that was one of the options as a first single on the second album. And then there was we were kind of like, that was the obvious, because it was pretty vocal, not a happy, but uplifting track and whatnot, most commercial on what we had at that point. But then we were like, you know what, if we release that and it doesn't do a big splash, then it's kind of a failure. Like then it's really a failure because it's obvious that we're trying to do a commercial record.
Right.
And so then another track that we had been working on was a track called Music, which we then chose to be the first single of the second album, thinking that we'd rather just not have success, if it so happens, with a track that is not necessarily even trying to be commercially successful. So we just chose to go with sort of a harder and rougher track, and thinking the same, sort of like, if it works on the dance floor, that's enough for us. And well, that track works on the dance floor. It didn't become a huge commercial success. No, we had it on, like, there was like a Canadian chart, there was a Polish chart, there was Finnish chart, some countries here and there that it actually was quite towards top and whatnot. So it wasn't like a failure, but comparing to Sandstorm, well, nothing's really been that big. So, but we sort of did this. It was just a principle. Like we didn't want to be seen as, you know, trying to get commercial success, sort of on the wave of the earlier stuff, like desperately. And I'm quite happy we did that, because it was then, it would be great to always have huge commercial success, but at the same time, we just followed what we wanted to do. And I think that's also quite respectable.
Well, going into that question, you said it perfectly. You know, you've had the success of a great hit record, or two, or three. You've toured the world. I mean, you've seen it all, done it all in those spaces. What would you consider, or what was the moment that you felt like, okay, I've finally reached success? Maybe it wasn't the record. Maybe it was something else that happened where you go, okay, I've reached it. I'm here.
No, well, okay, so I'll give you two things. I didn't know that I reached success or that it would last or anything like that. But I'll give you a moment that I will never forget, or sort of short time period. Summer 2000, MTV Ibiza 2000 party. So the MTV Europe had this party in Ibiza, and it was an outdoor festival, and I was invited to play there. And it was my first time going to Ibiza. That's one, you know, I'm there, the mecca of dance music, and getting to party a little bit and saw the DJs. And then I'm there, and I realize, walking past this huge billboard, like by the entrance, and they had tons of names there, but my name was between Armand van Helden and Underworld. And then on the lineup was, for instance, Paul van Dyk as well, who I, you know, looked up to for long. And then that was just like, holy shit, my name is like on the same poster with these guys. I mean, there were many.
Had to be a moment.
Oh, that was a huge moment, but just not that yet was like, so that the main day that when I played, about an hour before my own set on the main stage, there was this trance arena where Paul van Dyk was playing, and I was like 200 yards away or something like that in our backstage, and I heard he started playing Sandstorm. So I'm just like running there.
Wow.
And it's this space for maybe 2,000, maybe 5,000 people. I don't know. It's hard to gauge. I don't remember exactly. But so I went backstage, and I told like stagehand or Paul's manager or somebody like, hey, you don't know me, but that's my track. And so he went to tell Paul. Paul invited me to his booth, and I saw the crowd go mental. And that was like one of the first times where I, first of all, saw that in that scale, but then also like that was Paul van Dyk. That was like, you know.
How awesome was that, man?
Yeah, and it didn't end there. So then I watched him play the track, watch crowd go crazy. I walked back to my backstage, but then at that point, Underworld was on they started their set, and well, nobody knows me. I'm in Ibiza the first time. I went in the crowd, in the middle of the crowd, listened to their play, their set, and like I'd listened to their stuff for a good while at that point, and was just like going bonkers hearing them live, only to realize that I'll have to not listen to it till the end because it's my time soon.
Because you got to go perform.
Yeah, walk backstage and prep for my own set. They ended this like maybe 10-minute exchange time or whatever, and then I'm on, and that was
mind blowing.
And yeah, I mean, I'll never forget just trying to like not be too obvious that I just, I'm fanboying everybody and being there and just being like, what the hell's going on? And at the same time, just like take it all in. So it was pretty damn cool.
That's amazing.
And then,
bro. I love it.
Yeah, and then, and again, like not success-wise. I don't know if I'm very sort of cautious with, and sort of, I guess cautious or reserved with the success measures or financials or whatever. But it was really cool early on, like early 2000s, after a couple of years of sort of being in a business, realizing that there was something in it. Like it wasn't like 1 year and done or whatever. And I was able to quit. I had a part-time job, and I was able to quit that. And then I also I bought an apartment, and like being at the bank and signing the papers and knowing that I mean, I didn't pay that on that go, but like normally you would have like whatever 10, 15 or whatever year mortgage and so on, and I would be able to do that in just a couple of years.
That's big time.
And that was just mind-blowing, obviously. And it wasn't a real job, or people didn't consider a real job, and I didn't, because it was fun as hell.
Nice.
So,
nice. I love that. Even like now, I meet a lot of the DJ producers. I've met Ferry Corson. I've met Protoculture, a couple of the guys that are out there. And a lot of you guys tell me that the EDM world, the DJ world is a kind of a tight-knit family. Everybody kind of knows each other, looks out for each other, at least the people that I've met so far. When you got out there and met people, was everybody pretty good? And did you... what was the person that you really wanted to meet that you fanned out on? You talk about Paul Van Dyke. Which one did you want to meet, and did you get to work with? Did you get to work with any of the heroes you thought, I'd never be able to do that, but you did?
Well, I mean, starting from JS16, Jaakko, he was somebody who I looked up to in Finland, and he had a couple of records that were actually internationally successful as well. There's a track called Stomp to My Beat that was in '98, I believe, on some Billboard chart in the US, for instance. So I looked up to him, but then I got to work with him and know him, and that didn't take anything away from that, but you get used to that, of course. So it's not like I fanboy him, for years and years, because I'm making music and, in the same room with him and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, like I said, meeting, for instance, Paul and I, we were on the same label in Germany, for instance, and I didn't get to work with him then, but I got to meet him a couple of times, and then like I hung out with him like in Ibiza or something, just quickly, not hung out, just said hi and whatnot, and that was really cool. But for instance, we didn't then become great friends. It was just respectful, handshakes and whatnot. And for instance, in Paul's case, I don't know if I could, if I would dare to say that we're friends, because we don't hang out in the same circles and we don't call each other like that. But I've met him over the years several times. He's the nicest guy. He's such a sort of low key. He's all about his music, and
Nice.
I like him a lot. I've met Ferry a bunch of times as well, and he's such a sweetheart.
Yeah.
He's so talented, and what I like about him as well is he doesn't give a crap. Like he has, similarly to me, I guess, like some sort of a stamp. You know, he's a trans guy or whatever he is, but he's made so many different kinds of things. And while I haven't released under, you know, many names like that, but I mean, I've made different kinds of music, and Ferry as well. Like he's I don't know how many aliases he has, because he just wanted to release different kinds of music under different aliases, and he's not. If somebody thinks that he's like a trans guy only, like they're quite sorely mistaken, and then also missing out if they won't check out his other stuff. I'm trying to think,
like an Armin van Buuren or Andy
well,
Moore.
I've met Armin. I like Armin a lot. I basically like almost everybody who I've met, and I wouldn't badmouth somebody who I don't.
Yeah, good idea. Don't badmouth anybody.
Some people are more reserved than others, but most people in the industry who I've met, like on the road and online and stuff, we get each other's trials and tribulations to a point, at least. So most of the time we tend to be quite sort of, you know, on a similar level.
Sure.
Changing war stories peer to peer, and you know, a lot of us come from quite nerdy backgrounds as well, so we might share a good bit of similar sort of, I don't know, workflows or how
Sure,
we work.
sure.
But one cool thing happened just recently. Like I've known Dave Dresden from Gabriel and Dresden for a good long time. We've actually had, when early 2000s, when I toured in the US, there was a guy, our mutual friend, who was my tour manager for a tour or two in the US, and he was one of Dave's best friends, and we kind of got to know each other then via just a phone call or whatever. And then over the years, I've met him several times. But now, a couple of years ago, we had this producer DJ meetup here in Finland at Paavo Siljamäki's place, who is part of Above and Beyond. And Dave was there as well, and that was like the first time we actually got to hang out for a couple of days, actually. And it's not like we didn't hit it off before that, but now you know, actually became sort of personal, being you know, in the same place, and since then we've been in touch a little more, and it was really cool. When the latest album came out, Remedy, I asked for stems to actually whatever track he would want me to remix, and I remixed a track called 12. And I completely messed it up, actually made it very, very different from the original, just to see what kind of reaction I could get out of Dave and Josh.
Sure.
And I made it a drum and bass record, and it's an instrumental track, and I actually sang on it myself, but you wouldn't recognize me because I put it through like vocoders and vocal synths and whatnot.
Sure.
And the cool thing is that their label Anjuna Beats actually released it, so that's like I could say sort of
another accident that you do. You had a couple of
yes, and a long time dream come true, to sort of working with Gabriel and Dresden, because I've loved their stuff since, you know, I don't know, early 2000s, whenever their first stuff. Motorcycle As a Rush Comes was one of the first tracks that I heard from them, and then there's under that alias, and Jess was singing on it, and then several other things over the years that I've played in my DJ sets and gotten to know the guys a little bit. So that was really
awesome.
cool.
That's awesome. Well, man, I know I'm taking up a ton of your time, so I want to ask like maybe one more question to kind of rope a couple things in. And with so much happening now with the pandemic, you know, that's changed the whole landscape of touring and venues and all that. You know, how are you staying creative and connected to your fans? Like, how are you able to generate some excitement?
Yeah. Screw COVID, if you ask me. But
we're all saying screw COVID, man. We're all over it. We're with you.
Yeah, I'm actually right now. I'm putting on a really brave face. I've really had this. It's not depression like that. I'm just pissed off a lot all the time. I've been going kind of like back and forth this wave. Some weeks I'm good, some I'm not, and like the last week or two I've just been not so great. But silver lining of this all is first time in 20 years I've been home more than a couple of months. Of the year, basically. Well, I mean, well, that's not right. But I mean, my two kids, when they were born, I was home a month, 2 months before and after on both our firstborn, even a little longer. But other than that, I'm on the road quite a lot. So being home, waking up home every morning, hot cereal, little blueberries in a mix, the little one to the daycare on. Yeah, it can be a little bit of a Groundhog Day after 20 years of being on the road and waking up in different rooms around the world. Sure. But once you get used to it, it's actually really cool. Putting my girl to bed, slapping my son, high five with my son, him, whatever, being in a backyard shooting pucks, me getting to actually witness that. I mean, that all is, that has so much value that I know I would have survived and they would have survived if I was touring the same way, because that's what I did before, and it's all good that way as well. But now this has forced me to change the routine. So that's amazing. I've also been in a studio quite a lot more than I normally would be. Though, like a year ago when this started, the first 2-3 months, I could not get anything done. Like, it was so strange. I was so stressed and, homeschooling, figuring everything out, not knowing if it's going to be a week or a month or a year. And we still don't.
Uncertain,
that was
man. So uncertain.
Yeah, that was quite strange. But I started streaming regularly. Like I've been streaming online on Twitch since 2015, really, but was sort of random here and there. Sometimes a couple of times a week, sometimes a couple of times a month, and so on. But when this lockdown stuff started, I started doing Fridays a DJ stream, which I still do every Friday, 6 p.m. my time, so EET. And then I've done Mondays, have been studio streams, not every Monday the last half a year, but I did from March to July or so, I did every Monday, I did something studio-wise. So I produced a track or showed how I tuned this kick drum, or I showed how I made a back catalog track of mine or something like that. And then on Wednesdays, I've had these peer chat ones and fan chat ones. I've actually given out a WhatsApp number and people can text me questions.
That's
and
cool.
Or pictures or videos, and I won't show those.
I bet you get some random stuff, man.
Random is one word for it.
We'll leave it right there. We want.
Yep. But the really cool thing has been that the Wednesday ones, I've actually done these peer calls. So for instance, a couple of months ago, this year, I spoke with Dave Dresden for an hour and a half. We were just telling stories. I would have, with all the artists, it's not an interview at all, but I find some facts, I figure out releases of theirs that I've loved over the years, that I played myself in my DJ sets. And, I might ask tech questions. How did you make this? Or I might give the fans a chance to ask a question. But it's just a chat where the people watching can kind of like eavesdrop in. Very, very, chill. And that's been really cool. And I'm actually starting those again. Like I've got 7, 8 people right now lined up, and I'm still figuring out schedules and stuff. But we'll start awesome. That towards the summer again. And also I'm in the process of working on some edited material for Mondays for the studio streams, because I figured out I love doing the streaming, the production stuff, but to be completely honest, it doesn't really serve a purpose other than for that moment, for those people who are watching it, who want to watch. And it's a lot of time that goes into the preparation of that. And
believe me, I know. I do these all the time.
but then the actual stream is still quite a loose format. And there's a lot of ums and ums and a lot of mousing around for nothing, sort of. Then I take a question from the crowd, and that distracts me from what I'm saying. And while that, when it's happening, is just fine, it's great. But what I want to do is I'm going to actually do tutorial type of material the same way that I would do on a stream, but then I'll edit it together. So instead of 30 minutes of me rambling, it's going to be 5 minutes maybe. And then I want to play those on stream live, and then I can comment on them after the fact. But that way, then that's actually a content that somebody might want to watch after the fact, as well as a tutorial piece, say on YouTube or other platforms. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I know this was a long monologue, but that's what I've been doing.
That works.
That's what I've been doing for, I don't know, replacing me being on the road gigging. And the best thing about the streaming is people are often thanking me for me giving my time to them and blah, blah, blah. But they don't understand that I get so much out of it myself. The feeling that there's a connection, feeling, I matter, my music or my DJing matters. And then when I do, have stuff that I want to try out, it's not really a dance floor that I can see and smell, but it's comments on the chat, and it's vibes, and it's still a very similar thing. It's instant gratification.
It's instant. You can get that from the crowd. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I've been doing that and enjoying it a lot.
And that closes us off. And because the last thing I was just going to curtail us out was just, now that with COVID doing its thing and you've had time and you're at home, the last record you actually released was, I think it was Moments, which was 2015. Is there something new on the horizon? Are your fans getting excited for new record coming, or is it going to stay in the stream and the Twitch vibe and kind of go that direction?
I do not have an actual plan, whether it's an album, whether it's several EPs, or whether it's something else. But I am working on, I want to say, about 20 or so tracks in their various phases right now. I got a couple that I've been already, some of them actually, like a year ago, their early versions, 1 or 2 I've tried out live, but now I have a couple of them quite in their final form, and I've played some of them as ID, so no names on on different streams, and tested them out. And it's interesting, the lockdown DJing from this studio. Basically, I'm one of the few ones who actually sit down too. It's a lazy DJ, I guess, but I don't want to try and fake that I'm in a pumped up stage in a club, because I'm not.
I gotcha.
But so that kind of DJing and that kind of crowd that I don't see, and I don't, the energy is not, the sweat is not there. It actually makes you DJ differently, but it's also making you think of music a little different. And it's been quite cool to, it gives you a permission not to think of every track as the biggest energy drop ever, but you can actually build longer or build lower energy on purpose, do whatever you want. So like I said, 170 BPM drum and bass track was one that was released a while ago as a remix. There's a 120 BPM really sort of slow house-based track. There's a couple of like tech house, couple of deep house, couple of progressive house, couple of trance, uplifting trance, vocal trance, instrumental trance, one or two like techno-y tracks.
That's the professional term, techno-y. That's the professional term.
Yeah, exactly. If I said techno and people hear it, the techno people hear it, they'll be like, that's not techno. so it's techno-y. By the way, 20-something years in the business, and I suck at genres. The definitions of things, I suck at them, and I kind of don't care. My third album was labeled or called Label This because
there you go.
I didn't really want to call it trance, and I didn't know what the different sounds in it were, so I just challenged the listener to label it.
Oh, I love that attitude. I love your creativity. I love that you spent a whole lot of time with us. I was very glad. I didn't know I was going to get this much time with you. But I appreciate your willingness to share and be transparent and talk about what it meant to come from where you were to become who you are, and to talk about your kids and just the whole life you've built now. We appreciate that time, man.
Oh, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. And hey, if Ferry ever watched this, because I watched good part of his, he should buy some lights for his studio.
Oh yeah, he expressed he had a bad day with the lighting on that one, so I was giving him static on that, but he's got a better lighting system coming. Everybody can't be as cool as you, man. Your room is cool. There you go.
Cool.
Right,
yeah, your talk with. I enjoyed your talk with Ferry, but like I said, he's a really nice guy, and
such a humble dude. Just a humble dude.
I also agree with you. The fair stuff that he's working on, the chill stuff, is very, very cool.
It's cool. It's major cool. Yeah. I mean, that it's a departure, and it's just another extension of him, which I think is just so cool.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Cool. Well, look, you get back to making lots of music, and I'm going to make sure everybody sees this episode of you, man. How can they get a hold of you so we can make sure your fans can find you? Are there any other websites or something like that you want people to reach out to you there?
Well, first and foremost, I'm still DJing weekly, twitch.tv/Darude. It's 6 p.m. EET, and it's time change was just now, so it's AM in the US and later on in Australia, so to say, for instance. But I'm Darude on Facebook and Instagram, and then Darude VIL on Twitter. And Twitter I'm active myself on. I also read my Facebook and Insta, but not so active day to day responding to things. So if you want to get hold of me, come to my Twitch stream and say hi, or tag me on Twitter and you will catch me. Also, I have a phone here that the number can be found possibly on my Twitter or Insta at the moment, so you can send me a message
dangerous. There you go.
Yeah, every time somebody sends a picture, I'm kind of like,
Well, again, man, thanks for taking the time. And you heard it first here. We're going to let you guys reach out to him. And when you get a chance, this is the incredible Darude. And we just thank you for the time, man. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, man.
And for everybody out there, we hope you enjoyed this segment. What a great time to learn about a great artist who's just done so much for the industry, and that you guys can go out and do the same thing. A lot of unusual accidents came along his way to create his success. So it's not always super planned. Every moment has to be super pigeonholed. Sometimes you just make some great accidents and they become what they are. You become that successful person. It takes you right there. So I hope you enjoyed that and heard a lot of things that you can take for yourself.